Hi, my name is Kasper Johansen and I'm your YouTube philosopher. This video is a continuation of a video I did last summer. It's about process philosophy again, a more in-depth perspective on this process philosophy. A lot of things has happened since last year. It's been quite a process for me, and it's also been a process for you. It's been a process for everybody, the world. We've gone from a Barack Obama to a Donald Trump. So a lot of things can happen during the course of just a tiny year. But I would recommend, if you haven't seen the first video on process philosophy, I'm a process philosopher myself, so I think process philosophy is kind of the best way to explain everything, really, everything in the world. Explain how the metaphysics works, everything. It's kind of like a special classes you put on and view the world, and it's the best way to describe the world, really. Of course you can disagree with this, but a lot of scientists, including physicists and quantum physicists, also agree that this is a great way to understand the real workings of the universe itself. But you can watch that in the first video I did on the subject. In the first video I mentioned Heraclitus, a Greek philosopher who's one of these pre-Socratic philosophers before Socrates, around 500 years BC. He had the idea of a river. You cannot step twice into the same river because it's not the same water that flows through. That's what he says. You cannot step twice into the same river. That's what he said, and it's actually a genius statement and an ideal view of the world, that everything is like this river. And I shot something this winter, because let's look at what happened that winter. This is really fascinating. Even though this landscape here is totally covered with snow and it's freezing cold. It's freezing cold. The river is still running. The water in the river is constantly flowing because of the changing waters. The river never stands still, so it can freeze. So that's is this really what Heraclitus thought of when he had this picture of you cannot step twice into the same river because of the constant flow in water? This is really a great picture of how the world really works, and this process philosophy. Because the river, although it's freezing cold and it's winter, and there's even ice on a lake up here, the river, that hasn't frozen. The water still runs through the river. Fascinating. A lot has happened to me myself during the process of a year. I have become a birder, which I go around looking at birds, because there's a lot of species of birds and I enjoy bird watching. That has something to do with process philosophy also. because birds are a good metaphor or picture, a scientific view of this process, also because birds used to be dinosaurs before there was man and mammals like this giraffe. If you don't know, kind of looks a bit like a cow also, but this is actually a teddy bear giraffe, a mammal. But before there were mammals and man like me, there was dinosaurs walking around, and dinosaurs evolved into birds. I got this rooster here, a chicken, and there's like 10,000 species of birds around the world, so dinosaurs are still here. And I always loved dinosaurs, but I have since then become a birder. This whole thing about birding I'm doing makes me think of what is the complete opposite of a process philosophy within philosophy or a religion maybe. There's this extreme version of Christianity which is creationism that believes kind of the world has been static ever since God created the earth 6,000 years ago, and why the dinosaurs are not around anymore is because Noah didn't put them on the ark. Well, I much prefer a process philosophy that adheres to a evolutionary theory about how everything evolves and changes over time, over eons of time actually, and that's why dinosaurs has become birds. It makes sense, especially for me as a process philosopher, and it also explains why birds are so different from all kinds of animals. And back in the old days, when people studied a form of evolution, they couldn't explain where birds come from. We know that now, and scientists agree that birds come from dinosaurs. It's also back in the ancient Greece, there was an opposite to Heraclitus himself, which was Parmenides, and he actually believed there wasn't any change in the world. There was no change at all. Everything is totally static, and change doesn't even occur. That's kind of far out, but many people still believes that nothing really actually changed. It just stayed the same, and that's not possible for me as a process philosopher, and that's why this static world view there's in creationism, that a God just created the world, and 6,000 years after, here we are, and nothing has really changed that much. There hasn't been any evolution of animals. They were just there, and that's the whole thing about process philosophy. Nothing is just there. It has a process to become something, and it still becomes something. Birds continue to evolve. Species dies out, another species take over. Take the common blackbird. The blackbird used to be in a forest like this, a very shy bird. Now you're seen in every city in the world, close to man and not even shy about man, because blackbirds has evolved to something else. They have been through a process of adaptation to man itself. So this is very interesting. So that's also why I think birding is kind of cool for me, because it embodies also a process philosophy for me. But let's see if we can find some interesting dinosaurs. Birds. The thing is also about process philosophy. That's another perspective on it. It sounds, when you talk about it, and also in my first video, it sounds very positive. That it's a process and everything changes, and you can think of Hegel's philosophy in the 18th century. The German philosopher, German idealist. Who's also a process thinker, but everything is kind of can be positive in his video, where the spirit, which is the totality of man, or the totality of God and the world, it goes towards the absolute rational concept. So in Hegel, everything turns out all right in the end, but he doesn't understand process entirely, I would say, in that world, because we cannot know how everything ends. That's also the thing with the universe. The universe, there's two pervading theories about what happens to the universe in the end. Does it implode and begin again? A continuation in eternity? Or does the universe keep its expanding? The scientists can see that the universe is expanding, and there's a theory about imploding again. It will pull towards its thing again and then start over. Or it could just keep expanding and expanding, and in the end, every light, every star, every sun in the universe dies out, and there's only darkness, and nothing would ever return. We don't know how this process would end, and that's also a more mundane thing about human history. Are we here in 10 years because of climate change? No, maybe not in 10 years. Are we here in 300 years because of climate changes? Are we here in 10 years because of Donald Trump? We don't know what would happen with him as a president. Is it good or bad? And that's the whole thing about process philosophy. Is it positive or negative? Well, there was people on the RMS Titanic. They were different kind of people, but a lot of them were poor Irishmen from Great Britain, who was going to the United States, to the new country, to have a new life, to go through a process of change. They went on Titanic saying, yes, we're gonna do it, we're gonna travel by boat, big ship, luxurious ship, the biggest ship ever built. We're gonna go to the new country of America, and we're gonna experience process. We're gonna change our life and start anew. We all know what happened to the Titanic, and all those people are on the sea. They're all dead. A lot of them are dead. Although they wanted process and change, they died out. So is process good or is it bad? Well, that's the thing. It's something we as man value, because not everything is explained from the perspective of man. That's a flaw in philosophy, that we're kind of equal to a divinity that knows everything. No, we doesn't know everything, and we don't understand everything, and maybe what the world process is has nothing to do with a level of consciousness that is equal to man because it's more superior or something, but it's something we value. What happens to the people on Titanic is something we value as good or bad, or the same thing with the universe. Does Does it start over? We would like to think that that's a positive thought. It returns. The universe keeps imploding and start over. That means that this might be a billion process time that the universe has collapsed and started anew. We don't know. Or it could just die out and eventually there's only darkness. We don't know. It's the same thing with Donald Trump. We don't know what will happen now. And that's the thing about process philosophy. That's an important thing to learn that I didn't have in the first video, that process is what you value it. Process philosophy process could also be called chaos. What is the difference between process and chaos? Well, it's what if it's the concept of chaos is what we value. We interpret the word chaos as we want to, and the same with process. We interpret it in one way, and we could interpret process in another way. Jean-Paul Sartre, he had the idea that from a God perspective, if we really want to look at things from a deity perspective, when people die in a tsunami or something, or at the Titanic, from a deity's perspective, it's rearranging molecules and cells in space. Nothing more. But we look at the individual lives of those who died on Titanic or in the tsunami. We look at them as people, and we feel bad, we feel sad to hear that many people died, because we can relate to them, we give them value. And I'm not saying we shouldn't give them value. Value is something man do, we give things value. That's also what Friedrich Nietzsche says. We have to create our own values. We cannot take them for granted. We should know that it's something we decide. But it has no 100% metaphysically perfect thing coming divine down from space saying this is the right way to value things. No, it's whatever you make of it. It's process or it's chaos. It's process, it's chaos. It's process, it's chaos. It's process, it's chaos. What is it? I don't know. But there's hope. Because process philosophy is actually a hope. It's a hopeful philosophy, because whatever happened in the past doesn't say anything what will happen in the future. You cannot look at the past and saying, this used to happen, that means this is going to happen in the future. You don't know. The past doesn't say anything about the future. You can say it does, but it's not true, because everything is processed in the moment. I might have a heart attack right now and collapse. I might, sometimes buy lottery tickets. I might win the lottery this weekend. I don't know. It's a process, really. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you, hopefully, in the next video. Bye.